Forget Tyrannosaurus Rex. Forget the thunderous footsteps of a land-based giant. I want you to imagine something different, something heavier. Imagine a predator longer than a T-Rex, as long as a school bus. But it doesn't hunt in the forests. It hunts right here. A 50-foot, 15-meter behemoth that stalks the waterways of Cretaceous Africa. A creature that is part dinosaur, part crocodile, and part giant eel. For nearly a century, we thought we knew this animal. We categorized it, drew it, and stuck it in the box of giant meat eaters. We were wrong. We were catastrophically wrong. This is Spinosaurus aegyptiacus, and in the entire 150 million year reign of the dinosaurs, there is nothing else like it. It is, perhaps, the single weirdest theropod that evolution ever produced. Today, on Weird Animal Evolution, we are not just looking at a fossil. We are solving a mystery where our own understanding was the first casualty. How did a dinosaur become a river monster? Our story begins not in the water, but in the blistering deserts of Egypt. It's 1912. A German paleontologist named Ernst Stromer discovers the partial remains of a new/colossal dinosaur. What he unearths is baffling. He finds vertebrae with neural spines extending over 5 feet. That's 1.6 meters long. He finds a piece of a long, narrow jaw. He names it spined lizard from Egypt, Spinosaurus aegyptiacus. Stromer's original interpretation, based on the limited fossils, was a creature that looked like a standard bipedal, theropod. Just with this ridiculous, oversized sail. For decades, that was Spinosaurus, a bizarre, sail-backed land hunter. Then, tragedy. In 1944, an Allied bombing raid destroyed the Munich Museum, where Stromer's fossils, the only Spinosaurus fossils in the world, were held. They were completely obliterated, vaporized. For over half a century, Spinosaurus became a ghost, a dinosaur known only from drawings and descriptions. But then, starting in the late 20th century, new fragments began to emerge from the deserts of Morocco. These weren't just any fossils. They were from the Kem Kem beds, the fossilized record of a 100-million-year-old river system that was, frankly, the most dangerous place on Earth. This river of giants was teeming with monsters, car-sized coelacanths, giant sawfish called Onchopristis, and the apex land predator, the shark-toothed Crocodile, and living right alongside them was a new and these new bones. They didn't match the old story. They pointed to something far, far stranger. The picture they painted wasn't just of a land animal. It was of an evolutionary chimera. Let's start with the head. A T-Rex has a skull built like a battering ram, designed to crush bone. Spinosaurus has a skull that's long, slender, and almost delicate, like a heron or a giant gharial. And the teeth. Visual close-up comparison. T-Rex tooth, a banana with a steak knife edge versus Spinosaurus tooth, a smooth pointed cone. A T-Rex tooth is a blade, designed to shear flesh. A Spinosaurus tooth is a smooth conical spike. It's not for cutting, it's for gripping. Specifically, for gripping slick, wriggling prey, like fish. But the weirdest part of the skull is what we can't see from the outside. The snout is riddled with tiny holes called foramina. In crocodiles, these holes are packed with pressure sensors, allowing them to detect the movement of fish in murky water, even with their eyes closed. Spinosaurus had the exact same sensory system. It was hunting by feel in the water. And look where its nostrils are. Visual. Graphic comparing nostril position of a T-Rex front of snout and Spinosaurus high up, near the eyes. They aren't at the tip of the snout. They are retracted, set high up on the skull. This is a classic adaptation for an animal that spends most of its time with its snout submerged, allowing it to breathe. But the skull was just the appetizer. The body is the main course. When more of the skeleton was found, paleontologists were stumped by the hind legs. They were shockingly short and stout for an animal this massive. They seemed almost comically undersized. An animal this top-heavy, with a giant sail and a 50-foot body, would have been awkward and slow on land. It was clearly not built for chasing prey across the plains. The real smoking gun, however, was inside the bones themselves. Most theropods, like birds, have hollow bones to reduce weight for agility on land. Spinosaurus did the opposite. Its bones were dense, unbelievably dense. This is a condition called pachyostosis, and we see it today in animals that need to control their buoyancy underwater. Animals like penguins, hippos, and manatees. Spinosaurus was built like a hippo. It was intentionally heavy, using its own skeleton as ballast to submerge itself and walk along the riverbed, or to control its position in the water column. This was no land hunter. This was a 50-foot, 15,000-pound aquatic specialist. But even with all this evidence, the croc snout, the pressure sensors, the dense bones, one enormous question remained. How did it move? Its short legs weren't powerful enough to propel this giant through the water. For years, scientists assumed it was a slow, waiting predator, like a giant heron, striking at fish that swam too close. Then, in 2020, a new discovery changed everything. Deep in the Kem Kem beds, the team unearthed a nearly complete tail, and it was a bomb. The tails of other theropods like T-Rex are long, slender, and stiff. They are counterweights. Spinosaurus, its tail was something else entirely. The tail was incredibly deep and flexible, with elongated neural spines creating a massive fin-like structure. It wasn't a counterbalance, it was a propulsor, a giant oar-like engine. This was the missing piece. Spinosaurus didn't just wade in the water, it hunted in it. It was a dinosaur that swam, propelled by this massive, 16-foot-long fin tail. It could scull through the water with terrifying power and grace, an ambush predator of the deep channels. This wasn't just a dinosaur that liked fish. This was a dinosaur that had systematically evolved to become a crocodile, but on a theropod's chassis. It was a 15,000-pound semi-aquatic predator that had taken over a niche no other dinosaur had ever dared to fill. It was the apex predator of the river, not just at the river. It would have patrolled its territory, a dark looming shadow in the river of giants. It could have stayed submerged for long periods, its dense bones keeping it pinned to the riverbed, feeling the water with its snout for the vibrations of a passing sawfish. When it attacked, it would have been a catastrophic explosion of water and teeth. On land, it was probably clumsy, vulnerable, and slow. But in the water, it was the king. Which brings us to the one last, bizarre mystery, that incredible sail. For decades, people assumed it was for thermoregulation, that is, soaking up the sun to warm its blood, or flushing blood to the surface to cool off. This is a popular theory for animals like Dimetrodon, which isn't even a dinosaur, by the way. But there are problems with that. The spines themselves don't show the kinds of grooves we'd expect for a massive network of blood vessels. And its semi-aquatic lifestyle makes this even more complicated. So, what was it for? The truth is, we don't know for sure. But the leading theory today is far more exciting. It was a display structure. A giant biological billboard. When Spinosaurus was in the water, its main killing engine, the tail, was submerged. Its body was submerged. The only thing visible above the surface would have been its head, and that enormous, stunning sail. It was a warning to rivals, a signal to mates. It was a way for this 50-foot animal to say, "This is my stretch of the river. Get out." It was pure, unadulterated evolutionary swagger. This animal wasn't just a predator, it was a mosaic. It had the skull of a crocodile, the bones of a hippo, the tail of a newt, and the sail of a fantasy dragon. It is the perfect example of convergent evolution, when different species independently evolved the same traits to solve the same problem. Spinosaurus needed to hunt in the water, so it became the water. So, Spinosaurus, the dinosaur that broke all the rules. For a century, it was a ghost. Then it was a land dweller with a bizarre accessory. And now, thanks to decades of painstaking work, it has revealed its true self, a creature more complex and specialized than we could have imagined. It is the ultimate proof that we should never be too confident in our assumptions. Evolution is not a straight line. It is a chaotic, brilliant, and opportunistic force. It will seize any opening, fill any niche, and in the case of Spinosaurus, it will take a 15,000-pound land-based theropod and tell it, "Go for a swim." It wasn't just a predator. It was an ecosystem unto itself, a dinosaur that left the land behind to become a river monster. What do you think is the weirdest adaptation Spinosaurus evolved? The paddle tail or the sensor snout? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you love diving deep into the most unbelievable stories in evolutionary history, make sure to like this video, subscribe to Weird Animal Evolution, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a bizarre beast. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.